There is a book based on the programme In Suspicious Circumstances, published by Box Tree, available in bookshops now. Price £4.99.
For 16 years she was hidden away, torn between her body and her soul. But her brother's death brought her out to face her darkest emotions.
Was it an accident?
And to face the men who would exploit them.
I'll do anything to get this mill running successfully. Anything.
Her body.
You are not the kind of woman to be locked up to wither away.
Anything.
And her soul.
Help me find my way back.
Introducing Kristen Scott Thomas. Body and Soul begins Thursday the 8th of April on Meridian.
You're looking at temptation.
First, surf in a box. Now, surf in a bag. It's as good as ever on stubborn stains like blackcurrant. But now, surf in eco bags saves you even more, so it's cheaper than any other leading concentrated powder. Surf, tackles stains, cuts cost.
Bernard Matthews turkey breast roast is over 94% fat-free. A midweek family roast for around $2.99. Beautiful.
Bright eyes, a healthy body, a glossy coat, lots of vitality, and strong teeth show how PAL helps your dog stay fit 5 ways. And now with carrots, pasta, traditional marrowbone, and other great new recipes, there's even more to PAL than meaty goodness alone. PAL, help your best friend stay fit 5 ways.
Clock up 9,000 miles free. Buy a new Clio or Renault 19 diesel now, and Renault will send you a cheque worth 9,000 miles of fuel free.
The secret of Cantonese beef. The mystery of Chinese cooking. Unraveled by Sharwood.
This little tin is full of 98% pure potato. So is this little tin.
For mash, get smash.
With the opening of the Channel Tunnel only months away, what does the future hold for the Channel ferries? Meridian Tonight brings you an exclusive special report, tomorrow at 6.
We generally associate Lincoln's Inn Fields with the legal profession. These days, the prestigious London address is home to the homeless. Viewpoint 93 investigates at 10:40 after the news.
From the headquarters of ITN, News at 10 with Julia Somerville.
The UN confirms a mass execution in Croatia. Shot policeman's widow calls the IRA worse than animals. Commons ruling gives Euro rebels another go at Maastricht. And far away from Beirut, John McCarthy tells his story. Good evening. News at 10 tonight reports on why United Nations war crimes investigators are now convinced that nearly 300 men who disappeared in Croatia 16 months ago were executed. Allegations of war crimes have been heard often since Yugoslavia broke up, but this case presents the first clear evidence of a massacre. The town of Vukovar in eastern Croatia had just fallen to the Serbs. The 300 Croatians were at the hospital in Vukovar. Before the Red Cross got there to escort them to safety, regular Serbian soldiers ordered them away at gunpoint. It now seems they were taken no further than Ovčara, where they were shot in cold blood, possibly by Serb irregulars, the so-called Chetniks. Terry Lloyd has been to the site and sent this exclusive report.
On the edge of this secluded woodland at Ovčara near Vukovar, a massacre took place, the exact scale of which United Nations war crime investigators have yet to determine. UN forensic experts who visited the site believe hundreds of Croatian men were murdered here. For the first time, we can show video evidence recorded by that UN team linking this grave with the disappearance of almost 300 Croats who were ordered at gunpoint out of Vukovar hospital by Serbian troops. 11 bodies have already been uncovered here, along with items of hospital clothing. 2 skulls which were examined during this preliminary dig in December had small caliber gunshot wounds. A necklace amongst the remains bears the inscription "Forgotten Croatia." Trees around the grave had been raked with gunfire and a Serbian army ammunition box was found nearby. This man, forensic scientist Clyde Snow, is now planning to fully excavate the site and report back to the UN. From his laboratory in Chicago, from where he's investigated many international murder cases, Dr. Snow confirmed to us that a massacre had taken place at Ovčara.
Well, we have clear-cut evidence that a mass execution occurred at Ovčara. And the evidence so far seems to connect the victims with the patients who disappeared from the hospital at Ovčara on November 20th, 1991. And so I think this amounts to clear-cut evidence of a possible war crime. I can't think of any other reason why we would find perhaps as many as 200, 250 people executed with gunshot wounds in a clandestine grave.
These pictures were taken shortly before those 300 men were forced out of Vukovar hospital at the end of a 97-day siege of the town, which had been a symbol of Croatian defiance. This Federal Army commander prevented Red Cross officials from entering the building until his men had rounded up all the Croatian males inside. It's said that at that point, the horrifying ordeal began. The women and children were separated from the menfolk, who included the lightly injured, boys, hospital staff, and other townsfolk who'd come here believing they were to be evacuated. Instead, they were led from this back door to the hospital to waiting coaches. Their families have never seen them since. The UN believes the men were then driven through these war-ravaged streets to a local army barracks. There they were badly beaten, and one report suggests 10 Croat fighters were taken outside and shot. 2 hours later, battered and dazed, the remainder were on the move again, driven out of Vukovar 5 kilometers south to the farming community of Ovčara. There was to be one more diversion. The men were taken to this farm outbuilding where they were forced to run a gauntlet of Chetniks, wielding baseball bats and rifle butts. This was the final and fatal leg of their journey. The men were marched across this field and here to where a freshly dug trench was waiting for them. It's alleged that they were then lined up and shot through the head. What is fact is the UN have a list of 294 names of people missing from Vukovar hospital. This is where they could be buried. The evidence dug up so far by the UN has been angrily refuted by Serb militia leaders. Local Serbian journalist Mirko Stankovic is equally adamant.
No. The army was very, very principled. They respected all the international conventions. There are witnesses who've said that even the ones who were executed, supposed to have been executed, were exchanged.
Yet ITN has traced a key witness whose testimony to the United Nations will prove crucial to war crimes investigators. 20-year-old Žarko Kojic was taken from Vukovar hospital and badly beaten at Ovčara farm. He says he escaped the firing squad because he was recognized by a Serb soldier who spared him. When we showed Žarko pictures taken that November day, he immediately pointed to one man who he described as the Chetniks' ringleader.
This is the man who was at Ovčara and who was the one who carried out most of the beatings. He was the most bloodthirsty. He was the one who broke my glasses and beat me with a baton. He especially took pleasure in beating one of my friends called Kemo. They beat him until he showed no signs of life. He lay on his stomach, blood pouring from his mouth and ears. This happened very close to me, and that's why I don't believe he is alive.
That friend, 31-year-old Kemo Saiti, is amongst those listed as missing by the UN. His family now live as refugees on the Croatian coast. They've heard the story of Ovčara farm, but cling to the hope that somehow he survived and that one day they will be reunited.
As time passes, it becomes more and more difficult to cope. With the girls, it's easier. With the boy, it's more difficult. This is the first time I've told the story in front of him. He didn't know about it. He keeps on asking me where his father is. He asks me, why isn't my father phoning me? Why do you keep lying to me? The older he gets, the more questions he asks.
The answers to a little boy's questions and those posed by relatives of 293 other missing men may soon be revealed by war crime investigators who will return to Ovčara to discover the truth. Terry Lloyd, News at 10, Croatia.
Terry Lloyd reporting there on evidence only just emerging of past horrors of the war in Croatia. Today, the first war crimes trial of the current conflict in Bosnia saw 2 Serb fighters sentenced to death. A court in the capital Sarajevo found them guilty of genocide. Borislav Herak, aged 22, admitted raping 16 Bosnian Muslim women and murdering 11 of them. He said he'd been obeying orders, but that he deserved his sentence. Sretko Damjanovic had also pleaded guilty to rape and murder, but said today his confession had been beaten out of him and he would appeal. In Tuzla, the Muslim refugees evacuated yesterday from besieged Srebrenica got medical care and food today. This girl had shrapnel wounds and also lost her sister killed and her father left behind. The United Nations is now planning to bring more Muslims out of Srebrenica by road and helicopter. Here, the IRA killer Paul Magee is tonight beginning a life sentence of not less than 30 years for the murder of Special Constable Glenn Goodman. Mr. Goodman's widow, Fiona, said the IRA were evil psychopaths for making their baby son grow up without knowing his father. His mother called for the return of the death penalty. Joan Thurkettle reports.
The prison van with Paul Magee inside swept into the Old Bailey, where Magee's violent terrorist past, stretching back 20 years, was laid before the court. Of the killing of Glenn Goodman, the judge, Mr. Justice Law, said, "This crime plumbs the very depths of the abyss of wickedness into which it is possible for the human spirit to sink." As he left the dock, Magee turned towards the public gallery and gave the victory sign. Mr. Goodman's mother screamed at him, "Murderer, you killed my son." Afterwards, the family spoke to the press.
To call them animals would be an insult to animals. They're just evil psychopaths, especially Magee.
Why should my son be dead? He didn't do anything to deserve that. He was only doing a job. I'm so angry. I really don't know what to say.
He was just a family person, a very caring person, a great sense of humour and a love of life, which, unfortunately, my son can't grow up now knowing what his father was like. He can only hear about it,
The judge said Magee should stay behind bars for at least 30 years. Joan Thurkettle, News at 10 at the Old Bailey.
The father of Tim Parry, the 12-year-old who died of his injuries after the IRA's Warrington bombings, braved the cameras again today. This time it was to ask people to help the police to find the bombers. Colin Parry said he didn't want any other family to go through what his family had. Howell Jones reports.
Colin Parry has a simple message: help catch my son's murderers. Mr. Parry overcame his grief to appeal for more information about what happened on that afternoon in Warrington 10 days ago. Any clue that might trap the bombers.
It's inconceivable that some other town in this country could be chosen as a target by these people, and that some other families would have to go through what we've gone through this past week.
But another family who have been going through hell this week took a small step back to normality today. Samantha Thompson, who was like a big sister to Jonathan Ball and was with him when he was killed by the IRA, was released from hospital. Samantha's still too shocked to talk openly. Her parents are taking comfort from a newly formed friendship with Colin Parry, a friendship born of tragedy.
His thoughts are like ours. There's no place on this earth for them people. They're not soldiers. They're just terrorists. murderers and gangsters.
At the police incident room in Warrington, detectives already have more than 600 witness statements. As each day brings more information, so the police grow more confident they'll catch the bombers. They say it's not a matter of if, but when. Howell Jones, News at 10, Warrington.
The Prime Minister has said he hopes the new French government will bring to book their troublemaking fishermen. The plan worked out late last night to end the fishing dispute round Guernsey has come unstuck. The Ministry of Agriculture said access to British waters was a matter for the government, not local fishermen. Jersey fishermen were worried it could endanger their 3-mile fishing limit. The government is facing new problems tonight over ratifying the Maastricht Treaty. Labour has successfully tabled a new clause which might, after all, make the social chapter on workers' rights part of that treaty. The Prime Minister has repeatedly said he won't ratify the treaty if the social chapter's in it. But if enough Tory rebels support the new clause when it's eventually voted on, that's what might happen. Our political editor, Michael Brunson, reports.
This is the reality of the Maastricht Bill. Debate grinding on tonight in a near-empty chamber. The government's still a prisoner of both parliamentary arithmetic and procedure, despite last week's vote when the Liberal Democrats helped the government win a vital decision. But the social chapter's always been different because the Liberal Democrats, like Labour, think that John Major was wrong to have opted out of it at Maastricht. Things got even more complicated this February when the government changed its mind. Douglas Hurd saying that the Commons voting for the social chapter didn't really matter after all. But that confusion has now led Deputy Speaker Michael Morris into granting Labour's request for another chance. New Clause 75